My name is Bond.
James Bond.
James Bond.
We do not negotiate with terrorists.
I've always tried to teach you two things. First, never let them see you bleed. And the second, always have an escape.
I have to get it back, or somebody's gonna have my ass.
First things first.
And who's afraid now, Mr. Bond?
British secret agent James Bond 007 arrives at a Swiss bank in Bilbao, Spain to retrieve a large stash of cash and find out the identity of a killer who took out an MI6 agent. A ruckus ensues and the banker is killed before he can speak. Bond gets a little assistance before escaping the building and bringing the money back to Sir Robert King. But the money is booby-trapped and Robert King is killed. Bond gives chase to the assassin, but commits suicide to avoid being taken in. James Bond attends Sir Robert King's funeral, where he sees his beautiful daughter Elektra. Having sustained an injury, Bond is put on the inactive roster, but skirts the issue and is cleared for duty. Bond does a little investigative work, tracing King's assassination back to Renard, an anarchist who once kidnapped Elektra King. Bond is sent to Azerbaijan, where Elektra is overseeing construction of her new oil pipeline, and together Bond and Elektra are attacked by a hit squad on Powerhawks. Bond takes them out and protects Elektra King. Bond meets with Valentin Zukovsky at his Baku casino, gets a little background on Renard, and bumps into Elektra King, who makes a very high-stakes wager, losing $1 million in the process. And after champagne with Elektra, Bond goes undercover, posing as a Russian nuclear scientist, and meets American nuclear physicist Dr. Christmas Jones. Bond meets and confronts Renard, but a firefight ensues. Bond and Christmas Jones narrowly escape, but Renard makes off with a nuclear bomb. Back in Azerbaijan, M arrives on the scene, is debriefed by James Bond, and Elektra's pipeline is under attack. Bond and Christmas Jones attempt to defuse the bomb, but Bond lets it go off, faking his own death. And Elektra King reveals her true plans to M, who is then abducted by Elektra King. Bond confronts Zukovsky at his caviar factory, but they're quickly under attack by Elektra's helicopters with saw blades. Bond fights off the helicopters, and Zukovsky reveals his arrangement with Elektra King. Renard and Elektra are reunited and begin to hatch their plan with a stolen nuclear submarine. Bond and Christmas Jones join forces with Zukovsky and locate M, but the base is sabotaged, and Bond and Christmas Jones are taken in. Christmas Jones is taken aboard the submarine, while Bond is slowly tortured. But it's Zukovsky to the rescue. Zukovsky is taken out, but sets James Bond free in his final breath. Bond escapes, confronts Elektra King, but Bond takes her out. James Bond boards the submarine before it takes off, rescues Christmas Jones, and confronts Renard. And then it's mano a mano. Bond takes out Renard, and he and Christmas Jones escape the submarine before it implodes. And James Bond enjoys Christmas in Turkey. Written by Neil Purvis, Robert Wade, with Bruce Firestein, and directed by Michael Apted. This is 1999's?
That's correct. Mm-hmm.
The World Is Not Enough.
Yeah, I remember 1999 because in the trailers for this film, they're talking about the countdown to the millennium.
Right.
And that was part of the whole marketing scheme, or part of it anyway.
Yeah, yep. And there's the joke about the Millennium Bug.
Yes, the non-event.
Yeah.
I remember Y2K. Remember all that? Y2K, this and that? Yeah.
The infamous Millennium Bug.
When you first heard in 98, 99, when you heard this title, did you sit back snugly and say, I know what that is?
Oh, totally. Absolutely.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
I thought this was... I was kind of over the moon, really, because I thought this was one of the best... I mean, we're after the Living Daylights, we are officially out of Fleming titles, or for the most part. So, GoldenEye was a good idea. Tomorrow Never Dies sounded kind of generic to me. This one, I thought, that is great. It sounds like a Fleming title. It's got the Fleming connection. So, yeah, I liked it a lot, actually.
Yeah, and as you know, it's that's revealed in On Her Majesty's Secret Service, in the film series anyway.
Good motto, eh? The world is not enough.
So that's a really cool title.
Yeah, very cool. I like that a lot. Go ahead.
No, I just want to say, for me, back in the day and even now, I felt that this was kind of a return to form. As you may recall, I was not a big fan of Tomorrow Never Dies.
It's not no, huh?
No. No. This was sort of like, hey, we're back, And I knew, like, in that first 5 minutes of this film, I'm like, oh, okay, I'm going to like this. I'm going to like this a lot,
Yeah. Yeah, listen, I think, I rewatched it today. It's been a while since I sat with this and just watched it all the way through. I have to tell you, in the first 5, 10, 15 minutes, I was really saying to myself, I forgot how strong this opens.
Yes.
It's a real strong opening. And I like, I think when I first saw it, when it opened up on Bond just crossing the street and he was wearing a pair of glasses, I remember kind of going like, well, that's already a little different. I don't know if I liked it. But then once it got moving and I saw what they were doing, that whole Swiss banker's office scene.
Which I love. I love the Swiss bank stuff.
That's good stuff.
Yeah.
Really good stuff. That is classic James Bond, has a classic James Bond feel to it.
Yeah.
I think I love Brosnan's ferociousness in that scene. And I kind of feel like this is when Brosnan really kind of comes into his own as James Bond. I mean, he's been good. You heard me talk about in GoldenEye, I wasn't thrilled with his mousy sort of delivery.
The name's Bond. James Bond.
Tomorrow Never Dies, he kind of seems to get into it a little bit more. Here, he's nailing it. Like, really nailing it.
I agree. And that Swiss bank sequence is so great. And David Arnold's score is terrific, too, in that part. I mean, it's terrific throughout, but... and while we're on the subject of David Arnold, I'd like to mention that there's a little boutique soundtrack label called La La Land Records, and they released the full soundtrack of this film, and they did a great job. You can't get it. It's kind of hard to get. I think right now it might be out of stock because it's limited to like 3,000 or 5,000 copies, and they said they're just pressing more. That's basically what's happening. But yeah, if you want to pick it up, it's well worth the purchase.
Yeah, and I think his score in this is top notch.
Oh, it is. Yeah.
The boat chase sequence, which we'll talk about more, but the music for that. Wow, is that good? I kind of feel
great.
like that is in some ways like a quintessential Bond theme. Like we said in the last one, I was saying how Arnold, John Barry, again, after decades of doing Bond soundtracks, he always had sort of a signature tune. He would have like an action tune, and then for the romance songs, the love ballad stuff, he would take the title song and just sort of do it slower. Arnold here, I loved. He just figures the Bond theme is my score. It's a pounding rendition of the score, and it's, oh my God, is it good? By the time they get to like the finale of the boat chase, oh, it's great.
Yeah. Oh,
like,
yeah.
Love that.
It's really good. It builds up to that crescendo.
Yes.
And another thing, I should, I'm not working for La La Land or get any residuals or anything, but that is a terrific soundtrack because it has all the missing bits, like the Swiss bank opening. It has that on the La La Land thing, it's great to hear it without sound effects and stuff and so forth. So yeah, and that build up to that crescendo is terrific.
What a great, the whole pre-title sequence. And by the way, you probably know this already, but the pre-titles was originally designed to end at the end of the Swiss bank
Right, which would have been kind of cool, but yeah, going on to this bigger, elaborate scene, I think probably was the wise move.
Yeah, I agree. It was the wise choice, and I kind of agree that without this, I like it that it's a little more subdued. But I think that they probably figure, look, we had explosions before the pre-titles, before the titles, and Tomorrow Never Dies. We can't just have them jump out a window and call that a pre-title sequence.
Yeah, that's the price of getting bigger and grander and so forth. Yeah,
you can't dial it back now.
Yeah.
So it's interesting how after that you sort of, and this is, by the way, Purvis and Wade are the new writers now who will stay with this franchise forever. At this point,
this is their first effort.
This is their first, this is their first introduction, their first outing. So I liked how they open the film with a traditional Moneypenny scene, semi-traditional M's office scene, but they sort of, from there, they kind of throw in the twist where you have the big explosion in MI6, which is pretty was unheard of at that point. The idea that MI6 would be infiltrated. So I kind of like that return to form in a lot of ways, and so they're doing good here. I like their work in this, but yeah, I mean the boat chase is incredible. I have a nitpick about the Cigar Girl being there, because I kind of say to myself, again, I'm the king of ruining everything, but you overanalyze these things and here's what happens. But it always kind of rubbed me a little funny that there's really no reason for her to be there at all. Like they went out of their way to say that the lapel pin was designed that when it came in contact with the money that it would trigger, and that's how the explosion goes off. Okay, if that's the case, why is she outside in the boat? Just in case someone happens to stick their head out the hole in the wall? And so she, takes a couple shots at James Bond and then leaves, and now we have a boat chase. And it's kind of frustrating because all they had to do would say, well, she needed to be there so she could trigger the bomb. But they had already, I guess they came up with this dialogue about the lapel pin with working with the, and they're like, that just sounds too good. We can't not say that. So,
I'll tell you what though. I think when you first watch the film, you don't know that yet. So you kind of assume that she has to be there because she has something to do with triggering the bomb. But it's on subsequent viewings where you go, hey, wait a minute, right. Or like one of those parking lot things where you go, huh?
You're right. Yes, right. Yeah, right. It's one of those things that when you're home and you buy the DVD and you watch it 50 or 60 times, you go, hey, wait a second.
Yeah. Because I honestly love Cigar Girl. Cigar Girl is tops with me.
Did you ever see the film she was in, Il Postino? I think it was called Il Postino, The Postman.
Yes. I haven't seen that in years, but yeah, I remember she was in that.
Yeah.
She was also, I didn't realize this, I didn't put the connection together till recently, but she's in one of my favorite Soprano episodes. It was in the first season. There's an episode called Isabella, and she features prominently in that. And it's one of my favorite Soprano episodes because it's about Tony Soprano, played by James Gandolfini, getting so depressed that he kind of just goes to bed. But he keeps meeting up with Isabella, who's played by I'm gonna trample this name, and I apologize in advance.
I can never do it either.
Maria Grazia. It's even worse than when I was practicing. Believe me, I actually practiced this, and I still can't get it right. Maria Grazia Conchinio, something like that. And I apologize wholeheartedly for mangling your name, but she's terrific. She really is, and she's great in that Sopranos episode too.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. She's got that. She's got that kind of really sexy, sultry look to her. Yeah.
But there's like a presence, and she doesn't have a whole lot of dialogue in this or anything. But she's really convincing. Yeah. And it's kind of like, and I'm not one, we'll get to the Denise Richards thing, but Denise Richards seems like a girl, but this is a woman. You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense? You know,
Totally, absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, I'm with you. But and you know, she also had a longer. There were some cutscenes with her and Renard.
Yes, but there was. I think it's after Bond escapes. I'm not sure where it would have been placed, but yeah, Renard pops up. We see Renard that early, and they have this little scene together.
Yeah, and it's kind of awkward too, because if they left it in, and I guess that was there when they thought that was going to be the pre-title sequence.
I guess they would have went to that and then went to the title sequence. I don't know.
I guess, but what a dull way to end your pre-titles if you're going to have a conversation. Right. And then you cut to the titles. So yeah, she was meant to have a little more screen time, but yeah, what she brings to the table is great, you know.
Yeah, and I guess they would have that deleted sequence. I'm guessing that they would have had him escaping the window, and then you have their scene, and then I guess you cut to Bond walking with the briefcase away. I guess that would have been, and that would have got you into the titles. I guess. I
suppose, yeah.
Well, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, not a very strong one. But yeah, I mean, honestly, you know, again, rewatching this scene, I really did. It reminded me just how good that was. I mean, the boat chase is pretty spectacular. I mean, they do a lot of great stuff with that. There's more action in this first 15 minutes than there is in all of Spectre. No, that's not true. That's not true. It sounds good though. Yeah. And by the way, one of the things I liked about it too was that they got the humor spot on correct. Because that one.
Yes, and this one they do because we're jumping ahead here, but like Die Another Day, they completely fumble that. But here, it works. It's just the right amount of innuendo and puns. Yeah.
Yeah, and like the one scene in the boat chase where Bond takes the corner right as the two cops are they're putting the boot on the car.
Yeah.
And then he splashes them and they freak out. Like that to me is great. That's sort of like in Octopussy when Bond says I'm in the economy tour. Like it's not unrealistic. It could absolutely happen. It's placed perfectly well. It's a spot where you kind of a nice little bit of levity in an action scene. I thought that was spot on perfect. So that was really good.
Oh, I totally agreed. And just a spectacular opening sequence. And for me, just a welcome back, back to form, coherent action scene. Thank you.
Totally.
Yeah. And then what do you think of the opening title sequence, and the title song by Garbage?
Very serviceable. I'll just say, I like the titles are good. Kleinman is doing just fine with it. And the song is good. I've always enjoyed it. I kind of felt like it kind of seemed a little conveyor belt, not too dissimilar from what Sheryl Crow had done before.
I agree. Yeah. It's not one of those ones. It's not one of those when I'm putting in going in through my playlist of Bond songs. It's not like I could go for The World Is Not Enough. It's just like one of those. It happens to come up and I listen to it basically.
Yeah. Right, yeah. But you wouldn't fast forward through it either. I mean, it's good. Yeah. So, then you get into the meat of the film. I like. I like what's happening here. I like the introduction of Sophie Marceau. I think she is excellent.
Oh, I do too. Because I've seen some people diss her performance and, kind of give her, say, well, she's terrible. I think she's terrific.
I think she's great. Although I think that later on when she it's almost like as soon as she's revealed full blown to be the baddie, like Bond suspects before this, but then the bomb goes off and she's right about to do the thing with M where she kidnaps M. She does kind of all of a sudden lay on the mustache twisting a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I think by this point you got to have fun with it, and I think that's what she was doing, and I think that's Michael Apted's final decision, and I think it's fine.
I mean, it's not bad. It's not bad. I just sort of feel like you can feel like there's parts where. Like when she's got Bond in the torture chair, and she's going.
I really like that scene. It's weird. Too. It's weird, but really cool.
I do too, and I remember back then thinking, you know what? There used to be a lot of torture in the Ian Fleming books. Yeah. So I kind of like that we had.
That's what I like about it. Yeah.
Yeah. But she starts to like there's moments where she's about to throw kind of a full-blown tantrum where she says,
It is my oil. Mine.
"It's my oil, it's mine," and I think she's intentionally sounding like a petulant child throwing
Yes.
a little mini tantrum.
Yeah.
But I kind of find that works.
It does.
I think that works pretty well, actually. You know, she doesn't go overboard with it. Yeah, I just found that works pretty well.
Yeah, she's sort of in full mistress mode by that point. Yeah.
Yeah, dominatrix mode.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I loved the casting of her, by the way, because I mean, and the only I think the only thing I had seen her in at that point was Braveheart.
That's right. Yeah.
You know, I mean, she was great in Braveheart, so I kind of felt like, wow, she's really going to bring some gravitas to this film. So I was pretty excited for that. And I thought she was great. Very good.
Oh, it's terrific.
I love the scene, by the way, when it's after the funeral and he's kind of sitting with some computer monitors and he's researching her when she got kidnapped.
Yes.
That moment when, I mean, I guess the idea is it's a touch screen, but you see him kind of put his hand out and he taps his finger and it's almost like he's reaching out to wipe the tear away.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I love that. I think that was
really
really well
cool.
done. And
And
again,
she's very
that
convincing, having sort of like the Stockholm syndrome thing going on.
Yes.
Which I have to say, I have to give them kudos for the screenplay because this was like in the days before the internet became really spoilerific and so forth.
Yeah.
So that twist kind of worked for me back in the day. I was like, whoa, okay. Because, you know, they were kind of playing it as Renard was the big guy. And he is for the most part. But that was a neat twist. And I had to give him kudos for that. Because she does play sort of for the most part of the film, she plays like this wounded bird. And you're kind of sympathetic or at least empathetic to her plight, you know, along with Bond. And so it's a little bit of a snap when it happens.
Yeah, she plays that, like you said, the winged dove type perfectly, which Fleming was kind of notorious, but Bond would sort of get taken with the winged dove types. I later when I kind of felt like the big reveal was a tad confusing. Like when she's revealed, again, Bond sort of picks up that she's in cahoots with Renard. And then it seems like he's kind of second guessing himself. He's not positive. Then when she basically, yes, I'm the bad guy. Okay. Then later they kind of take it a step further where when Bond is being tortured and he says, "You turned Renard." Like, she was so manipulative that she was the bad guy the whole time. And essentially Renard was kind of just this flunky. Yeah, he was going to do a kidnapping, but he really was not the mastermind that people think he is. Rather, she was sort of pulling the strings the whole time. And I was like, all right, okay, I think I get where you're going with that.
Yeah, the screenplay's not perfect. I mean, there's sort of like what we talked about Cigar Girl there. You know, the scene at the Bond's pleading, "Don't blow us up," and so forth. And he says, "You know, I can protect you," and she's like, "Not from him." You know, and so they build him up like this guy is like really bad business. You know, like he's like the Joker from Dark Knight or something. But it's not really. You know?
Right. Yeah, right. And I think a lot of that just sort of falls under, typical screenplay tropes. Like, we've talked at length about how they build up the bad guy, and sometimes they live up to the hype, sometimes they don't. I kind of felt like he, as a bad guy, was okay.
By the way, Robert Carlyle's a great actor.
Yeah.
I got to mention Trainspotting because that's that's an amazing performance.
Yeah.
I mean, and I understand why he got cast as the villain from that movie, probably. Yeah. Because he's so menacing and threatening and unpredictable in that film. Yeah. He can go from turn on a dime and you just wow. You just don't want to be in the same room with the dude.
Yeah, I remember being very excited by the cast list for this film alone. I thought there was a lot of people they were bringing in that, again, really kind of had some great work under their belts, and he was one of them. The frustration comes later, though, because, again, they build him up like he feels no pain. He can push himself harder than any normal man. And then you get to the submarine fight at the end, and it's just kind of a regular old fight. He doesn't seem like he doesn't feel pain. Every time Bond hits him, he's like, oh, you know.
And there's like, it's sort of, I mean, it's not a bad quip, but it's sort of like ill-placed. You know, he says, "Welcome to my nuclear family," you know, which is not a bad line, but is that appropriate at that moment by that character?
No,
you know,
not at all.
Probably not. And that's the thing. I think one of the problems I have with this movie is probably the foundation of Renard, because they have a really interesting idea about him, about the bullet and him having this superhuman strength and not being able to feel. And they do touch on it a little bit. There's actually a really good scene between him and Sophie, or Electra rather, when you know he's talking about he can't feel pain and so forth. And has a really nice David Arnold underscore as well. It's very Barry-esque. And that's a really good scene. I mean, it's too bad, though, that they didn't, you know, that submarine scene should be bigger and just more badass, for sure.
Yes. Yeah, it does. Well, I mean, I kind of feel like we're sort of skipping ahead to the finale.
Yeah, we are.
But I think the lesson that we're kind of getting around to is that the film starts out really strong, and then kind of halfway, I find that it kind of starts to peter out. Like I like the introduction to him at Electra. The ski chase feels pretty wedged in, and I'm not really wild about it as a set piece. In fact, I kind of say to myself, how is it that however many years earlier in For Your Eyes Only they have a stellar ski chase, and this one for some reason it's very by the numbers, flat, kind of boring, and never really gets very exciting. And
the Powerhawks thing, but the Powerhawk thing is cool. Maybe it's not utilized to its full potential, but there is one line I do like. You know, when one of those Powerhawks goes over the edge.
See you back at the lodge.
Yeah,
but then that thing starts up again, and then it comes back. So I thought that's a good moment in that scene.
I do too. Yeah. Yes, that was a nice surprise. I didn't see that coming, and it was clever when it happened.
Yes.
But then they don't do a lot with that scene, and they kind of suffer from, like, what are they, TIE fighters? As soon as they touch something, they just explode. You know, in a big, but it's okay. But it just for some reason that scene never really rises to what it should be.
Speaking of TIE, I'm sorry to go off subject here for a second, but speaking of TIE fighters, why is the Emperor alive in Rise of Skywalker? No, I'm just kidding. The casino scene. It's not everything, the end all to be all of casino scenes. It's just cool that we get to go to a casino. Sometimes that's just enough for me. I'm just like, they're in a casino. Right. But, like, you know, I liked his glasses, and I liked that everybody was wearing, you know, everybody was armed to the hilt, and that was pretty funny. Yeah. Robbie Coltrane is back as Zukovsky, which is always welcome. I know that you have a few problems with him in this, but I was just pleased as punch to see him back.
I like the continuity of it, the fact that they did bring back a character. But I don't love it. Well, first of all, I don't like how he's written in this. Like when I kind of feel like that's when the writers are sort of showing their weaknesses, because I kind of felt like that scene suddenly felt like fan fiction, where when Bond walks in, James Bond, oh, why am I worried I'm not carrying enough insurance? And he says, chill out, James. Like, why would he say chill out? Like, that, again, that feels like a whole different writer than GoldenEye trying to write for this character and not really getting him. So I wasn't really crazy. I kind of feel like he's, for a character that really genuinely had some presence in GoldenEye, I feel like he's really just comedy relief in this. So I'm not loving it. He is
comic relief, but I just think it's great to have him back, and honestly, I love every minute that he's in it. I'll be honest with you.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, not terrible, but I just don't love it.
No, understood. But you make a good point. You do.
And I actually too. I remember the actual scene, like when she goes in and lays down the $1 million check and high card for $1 million. I remember thinking, like, that's really weird. Why would anyone do that? Why would somebody walk in and just make that kind of a bet and walk out? I mean, I think they're trying to play it off as some sort of a weird character flaw on her part, that she has to sort of live a little too dangerously. And then later they kind of go back, and Bond kind of goes, wait a second, that maybe there's more to it than meets the eye. Mm-hmm. But I remember thinking it was almost like, what a waste of a good casino scene. Like, you could have actually had them play something, as opposed to just going into a back room, flipping one card. And I swear to you, by the way, I remember the first time I watched that, the first time I saw this movie, as soon as they gave her the card and she flips it over, it's the Queen of Hearts. I swear to you, I said to myself, his is going to have to be the Ace of Clubs. Because if the Queen of Hearts is supposed to be her, I just went like, okay, what would Zukovsky be? He would be the Ace of Clubs, because this is his club. And sure enough, that's exactly what flipped over. So, yeah, just okay. But I think after this, though.
Good point, yeah. Yeah, you're right. They could have done something a little better than that. But
I mean, it just felt like very uninspired.
Yeah.
But I felt like after this, and then after the bed scene's fine. It works fine. Then he goes off, and he kills Davidoff, and then he jumps into the plane. And I kind of felt like this is where the film kind of starts to take on a different identity.
Oh, you mean like when he goes to the pipeline and so forth?
Like when they have the underground fight, he meets Christmas Jones.
I want to, before we get to that, I want to back up to that one scene where they go to the Devil's Breath. And Renard's sort of taking out. There's one line I love. It's almost a throwaway line, but there's a guy, he talks about that, he's like, those Powerhawks were supposed to, after the snow chase, he's like, those Powerhawks were supposed to be returned. People are going to start asking questions. I love that he kind of brought that up. It's kind of like, I mean,
that's funny that you brought this up, because I had the same reaction today when I was watching it. Yeah. No, I like that too. It kind of adds like a level of realism.
Yeah, because it's kind of like those things, it's like one of those talking points. Oh, they just get Powerhawks out of nowhere, huh?
Right.
Nobody's going to miss that,
Right.
It's kind of good that they at least addressed it,
Right, yeah.
No,
I do too. I think that was a pretty clever line. Like, when Bond's hiding in the trunk and Davidoff shows up and then Bond just shoots him dead, I remember thinking, like, for one thing, I kind of feel like Bond kind of gets his gun off a lot in this film. Like,
oh, is that a double entendre?
Maybe. Like, he's very gun happy. He's very trigger happy in this one. And I kind of felt like there's a lot of scenes where Bond, just for some reason, is just got to hold his gun in somebody's face. Like, I feel like he's got his gun in Zukovsky's face throughout half the movie. And I kind of felt like it was almost like Brosnan watched a lot of cop movies where they would stand there with these stiff arms as they would hold the gun out, looking kind of badass. And he just decided he wanted to do that a lot in this. Anyway, so he kills Davidoff, and then the scene where he jumps in that airplane and all those bad guys and Bond. Where's Davidoff? Oh, he was he was dead with work or something like that.
He's buried with work.
Buried with work.
Line, yeah.
And I remember thinking to myself, like, boy, here's another evil organization that's very easy to infiltrate. Bond shows up. They've never seen him before. He's wearing a tuxedo. They don't question where the other guy went. Just fine, Bond's here. He can come. Did you bring the stuff? Yeah. And he just hands him a bag. Bond has no idea what he's actually looking for, but again, the guy just sort of falls for it. He literally gets on the plane with no ID. Then he says, "Don't forget your ID," and he goes and just makes one. These baddies are not very good at keeping things secret and keeping spies out. I
guess Renard's henchmen are a little ill-defined anyway. They're just... I
mean, it was so bad. It was to the point where I was really starting to wonder, is this whole point that they're supposed to be bringing Bond in? Like, is this going to be one of those, like not to fast forward to Spectre, but when Bond infiltrates the meeting, and I felt like, boy, that sure was easy. He just holds up the ring that somebody could have gotten from someplace, and he gets in. But their way out of that is to say that, well, they let him in because Blofeld wanted him in. This one, I kind of felt like it was almost like they were going to do the same thing, where it was so easy to get in. Well, they must have wanted him in. Maybe this was a trap. But anyway, but I kind of felt like this whole part of the film, it feels like a different movie all of a sudden. And it's just kind of okay. Like, none of it really grabs me. The action's just sort of so-so. Not great, but not terrible.
Even the pipeline stuff?
I mean, like when him and Denise Richards are in that long pipeline?
Yeah.
That was fine, but I remember as I was watching that feeling like it's really hard to get very invested in that scene because you're sort of in this space that has to be kind of like CGI generated or something. So, and even Denise Richards' like delivery of some of her lines.
You've defused hundreds of these, right?
Yeah, but they're usually standing still.
It's like, could you please act like you're going 70 miles an hour and not just totally still in a studio against the green screen? Yeah, I don't know. So the movies, at that point, I'm kind of losing my...
I will say
it's
this.
almost like my investment in the story really I can't seem to hold on at that point.
I know what you're saying. I think this film is filled with action. And I don't know if they're great at connecting the A to B, like we go from this scene to that scene here.
Yeah.
But it's kind of it can hold up though in repeat viewings because there's so many things going on and there's so many action scenes. Like, I'm watching the film and I was like, oh my God, I forgot about this whole scene with the helicopters and the when they're attacking.
The buzzsaws.
Yeah, the buzzsaws. Right. Yeah. I had forgotten about that whole scene. I was like, oh yeah, there's a new action scene here. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I kind of feel like that's one of the problems with this film is that every action scene feels kind of wedged in. Like this helicopter scene that you're talking about, if I heard it right, this was originally supposed to be in GoldenEye. And it was like in one of the earlier drafts. Yeah. Uh-huh. And they just, for some reason, they got rid of it. It didn't end up in the final script. So they just use it here. And it's just like, again, there's no real reason for this to be in the film. Like if they just left that out, no one's the wiser. In fact, they made this big deal of when the bomb goes off in the pipeline, Bond's like, I did kill us. They think we're dead. And it's like, oh, great. Now Bond's got some advantage. No, because when he shows up at the caviar factory, he just leaves his car parked outside. Somebody sees it. Yeah. Bond's still alive. And now let's go attack him. Well, so much for that.
I really like that sequence. It's just different and entertaining.
I do too. And I honestly, I think half of the reason why that scene works is the score. I think the music for that scene is aces. I think that's sort of one of the secrets of David Arnold is that I think he really understands the tone of a scene. Mm-hmm. Like that scene to me is meant to be more than anything else fun and a little silly, and plus the helicopter blades, this is kind of like technology. So I think the music is very fun, not very serious, and it's kind of got this little techno-y kind of feel to it more than the rest of the score, because again, I think it kind of goes with the scene.
He kind of repurposes that track, though, it seems, I think, in Die Another Day for that chase with the hovercrafts.
Yeah, maybe.
It sounds very similar. But yeah. Point taken. Yeah, absolutely.
And by the way, and I always felt that scene feels very claustrophobic. Like there's something about that makes me feel like they are on a closed set, and I can't quite put my finger on why that is. But it feels like they're very much working in an indoor set. And by the way, like I said, that scene is it's fun and I like it, but yeah, it's another one that just don't think too hard about it. Because I like the more I watch that, and I was watching it today, getting ready for this, I kind of had a moment like, why is this happening? Like for some reason these helicopters show up and all Bond thinks he should do is just run around outside all around this whole set, and I can never figure out where he's going and why. Like what's over there that you should be running, to that, as opposed to just hiding somewhere and shooting from a place, where they can't reach you. So Yeah, I mean, it always feels like no matter where Bond is, he'd rather be on the other side. So he's got to find some way to run across or use the hook. I mean, again, I love when he grabs the hook and he swings across. It's a great moment. The music kicks in, but again, just don't think too hard. Don't think too deeply into what's happening.
I think that, and I think that's sort of I think that's why I like this movie, because it has, it's got your action, and some of the bridge to scenes is not great, but it's also a little bit of like, well, let's not take this too seriously. Like, this isn't like hardcore Casino Royale, it's more like a bit tongue in cheek,
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, and it's mildly frustrating because again, I think I'm pretty clear that I like this one. It's probably my favorite of the Brosnans, frankly. I think of the four, this is the one that I would like if somebody locked me in a room for 2 hours and all I had was the Brosnan movies. This would probably be the one that I grabbed and watched.
Okay. You're not going for Die Another Day?
No, I don't think I'm going for that one. But that's next time.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, so I like it very much, but there are a lot of lines in it where I just say, boy, I wish they just tweaked that a little bit, because if they just thought that through, like again, the cigar girl being outside was literally 1 or 2 lines of dialogue away from working. There would have been no question why she was there, but they just decided to do something else. The part when the Q scene, and Bond says, was it something I said? No, something you destroyed. My fishing boat for when I retire. And it's like, wait, what? you were going to use that boat for fishing?
Well, yeah, I had to bring something up here. This was, we should talk about Q and Desmond Llewellyn, because this is his final appearance in a Bond film.
Yeah.
And I remember watching this with our buddy Walter. And there's a scene, he says, I always have an escape planned.
Yeah.
And then he kind of moves down, he's moving down. And I remember Walter and I were watching it, and he looked at me and he just went, creepy. And it is. I think it's unintentionally creepy.
Yeah. But it's odd. It's almost like, did they know he was going to die after this?
Yeah. Is he going to hell? Oh, my God. This is horrible.
Yeah, right? Oh, boy.
No, God bless him. He's sorely missed, and it was always a treat to see him on screen. Giving Bond his various gadgets, and always being in that put-upon mood usually. We lost a great guy and an actor. It was
just very poetic that he got a nice send-off in this too.
Yeah, sure he did.
Yeah,
and really they bring in John Cleese, which I thought was a great choice.
Go on, because I have a thought on that.
No, he does seem, I think his introduction, I think Q's a little hard on him a little bit here, but yeah. I thought he was good.
But you know why that is, though? I mean, I think that they were very smart. I agree with you that John Cleese is a very good choice. See, this is my kind of like passive aggressive way of complimenting this movie. I think that bringing in John Cleese was a really good idea. He was really the perfect successor to Desmond Llewellyn at this stage of what the films were. But it's kind of like, well, first of all, the reason why they let Desmond Llewellyn kick him around was because I think if they didn't, like had John Cleese walked in, a very famous actor, and was sort of throwing his weight around, people would have been like, no, you do not push Desmond Llewellyn around. He's been doing this for, he's Q, he's beloved. So I think they purposely let Desmond Llewellyn put him in his place.
Right, but I think they were a little too far. They should have toned it down a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't mind it, but the dialogue is odd. Like,
All in all, rather stocked.
Fully loaded, I think is the term.
When he says something like, all in all, rather stocked, and he goes, fully loaded is the term. And I kind of felt like at that moment when he says that, I'm thinking to myself, like, this is very much, they're having a conversation about cinema, not about two guys talking about equipment or technology or anything like that.
Right.
And even Brosnan later, when he pulled the tag and he blows the suit up and he's flopping around, and Brosnan says, he seems very well suited for the job. again, I feel like he's talking to the audience. Like he's talking to the audience, saying, "I think he's going to work out very well as the new Q."
Yeah.
You know.
Mm-hmm. And so, we all love him for that invisible car.
There you go.
We should talk about Denise Richards.
Let's do it.
All right. I think a lot of people, I noticed a lot of negative criticism for this movie. Like, not GoldenEye, and even Tomorrow Never Dies. I'm like sort of a lone wolf there, to be honest with you. There's a couple people that agree with me and everything, but for the most part, they're kind of like, you're crazy. You know, what are you talking about, Scott? You know? But on this one, I do see a lot of negativity online about this movie. And usually it's this is the way it's usually dismissed in one sentence. They'll say, Denise Richards as a nuclear scientist, fail. And then that's it. You know, that's the reason why the movie sucks. And no, I mean, yeah, perhaps she's miscast and, you know, you kind of have to look back where we were in 1999. She was the it girl at that point. You know, she was kind of having this hot string of success.
Yeah. And
they cast it. They went for the hot, you know, they went for the person that was hot at that moment. You know, I have a buddy of mine, I had like a picture of, from this, you know, Brosnan, Sophie, and Denise, you know. And he's like, I'm sorry, man. He says, that looks like a mother and father with their daughter. I'm like, yeah, okay, all right. Yeah, you're probably right, you know. But
yeah, and Dad's right about to say, go upstairs and put some clothes on.
Does Denise Richards look like she should probably be at a college party in this, and rather than a nuclear scientist? Probably. Should they give her maybe eyeglasses or something? Yeah, that probably would have been a good idea. But she's not terrible in it, though. I don't think. I think she's fine. She does an okay job. You know, I don't think it's. Let's face it. It's not a well-written part, and it's one of the weaker parts, unfortunately, in thinking that. But I think she maneuvers through it admirably.
It's weird the way her part is, because she sort of almost feels like you spent the first half of the movie with Sophie Marceau and her character. Then this one sort of steps in, and she's really she's kind of like the Kissy Suzuki of this film, where she just sort of steps in and is now supposed to be like the main Bond girl. But she never seems to rise to that level. You know, like it almost feels like she was always sort of a sidekick and never really kind of came into her own as like a main character.
I like her underwater sequences.
Yeah, I can see why you would say that.
You know what I'm talking about, huh?
I sure do. Listen, you're going to be a little more diplomatic about her than I am. I think she's pretty awful.
Okay.
Again, but you don't bring in Denise Richards to play this kind of a part. So it's not, I'm not going to blame Denise Richards per se, but go ahead.
Oh, let me ask you this. Okay, so you weren't a fan of Terry Hatcher in Tomorrow Never Dies. Is she better, worse? I don't know. For you?
Worse than Terry Hatcher.
Oh, really? Okay. So you're like you're with the common consensus then, you know?
Yes, I am. I mean, it doesn't. Well, put it this way: I wouldn't say it derails the whole film. You know, it's not like I'm going to say this movie's terrible because of these rich. No, but you know, empirically, what do I think of Denise Richards? Not good. You why would you? Again, it's almost like miscasting 101. You know, like. Oh, she's a nuclear scientist, so we need somebody who's really smart and really seems like she knows what she's talking about. Let's get the cheerleader from over here, and let's dress her up like Lara Croft, because all the teenage boys love that these days.
I never caught on to that. Yeah, you're right. They do that, don't they? Yeah.
So again, I'm not blaming Denise Richards per se. I think she was almost. I'm not going to say intentionally miscast, but they definitely just realized, or should have realized, she's not the person for this role. But like you said, she's real popular, so we're just gonna put her in there and make the best of it.
Did you ever see that movie Wild Things?
Yes.
I think that's a great movie. I think she's she's perfect in that. You know.
Yeah, I mean, she's playing a high school girl. Yeah. So like a devious bad girl, high school girl.
And by the way, that movie has the best end credits ever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very true. So, and by the way, I think I've told you this before. If I was going to cast that part, I would have cast Carrie-Anne Moss.
That's what I was going to ask you.
That would have been my dream casting for that role, because I think Carrie-Anne Moss is she's a very attractive, very beautiful woman, but she looks like she's about business. Like, had
the Matrix come out at that point? I guess I had.
I'm pretty sure the Matrix was out, which is probably why I remember thinking it back then.
Right, okay.
But I think she sort of had that look where, again, she's all brains, she's all business, but later on when you want to do the scene where she's dressed up and dolled up, I think she would have done well there too.
That was a great answer, because I was thinking about, I was going to ask you that question. I was like, now I've got him. He'll be like, no, you nailed it. That's great, man.
There you go.
There's one scene I really love in this film, and it's a character moment. It's when Bond shoots Elektra. And then M has been, he releases M, but M sort of is like a third party there, and she witnesses what he's going through. And it's kind of a great moment, because, you get the idea that she speaks volumes with not saying anything, because you get this, at least I got from it, like she's always, very smart about how she sends people into the field and what they're doing, but to actually witness that, and that hard choice that he had to make, I thought it was a great moment, because it works emotionally from that point. You get M's point of view from it and her subtext with it. Then you get Bond's emotional feeling about it when he's doing it. And I think that's a great scene. And then, of course, we get our big action submarine business, which is fine.
Yeah,
but yeah.
I agree with you. That is a really good part, and I like you said, I think she speaks volumes without saying a word.
Yeah,
because I think at that point she's kind of accepted the fact that this girl has been damaged beyond repair.
Right,
and it's almost like I think she's kind of feeling like it's almost like a mercy kill at that point.
Right.
So yeah, it's a very good moment, and the line is great too, by the way.
I never miss.
When she says, "You'd miss me," and then I never miss.
Yeah,
That's a good line.
Yeah. Yeah, oh, that's great. Yeah, that's great stuff. And to me, that's the real climax of the movie, and the submarine stuff is just like bonus stuff. That's like actiony, stuffy stuff we go through.
Yeah, that's
just fine. There's a fair amount of suspense with that. I mean, they do a thing where he's got to go from one tube to another, and all this underwater, and he's got limited time, and she's got to open the hatch, but the water comes in. It's fine. At least it's different than the Tomorrow Never Dies climax, which is, like we said, is like just like autopilot. At least this has got at least there's some attempts at suspense and action.
Yeah,
although it doesn't feel as big as it should.
No, it doesn't. It's. I mean, it's a submarine. It's tight quarters. It's oddly well lit for a submarine. But I'm never crazy about that finale. And I think, and this is one of those times too where, being an armchair film critic, you start to pick up on some of the methodology in filmmaking. Mm-hmm. And one of the things I always find frustrating is the geography. You sort of never really can tell where everyone is, where they need to be, etc. So it's everyone's just sort of all over the place in this, and it's odd. Yeah. And then that fight with Renard is, I'm sorry, it's just a snooze fest. Like, it's so, again, the film just sort of loses its steam by this point. And I think they're just ready to try to just get this over with. Because that fight is,
it's a bit of a shame, really, because it's not bad, and the potential is there. It's right there. It's they're on the cusp of
Well,
it.
they built this Renard character up again.
Yeah.
He feels no pain. For crying out loud, I mean, he should have been. There should have been a fight, like a battle, like a full blown. This should have been like Bond versus Hinks levels.
Bond should be almost beaten to a pulp here, but it gets the advantage somehow, and then boom, yeah.
And it's a lot of that awkward kind of like Star Trek fighting. It's like jab, and falling down, and
dun, 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 dun. Dun,
You know?
dun, 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 dun. I was thinking, I was originally going to go into this, and I was going to because I believe I gave GoldenEye an 8, and I said, is it on a par with GoldenEye? And I think it just misses the mark. I mean, I think there's stuff in here that's better. That is like there's individual scenes that are better than GoldenEye, but overall, GoldenEye delivers maybe a better package. Even though the climax of GoldenEye is not that great either, it's better than the submarine stuff. Although that thing with when he kills Electra, boy, it's pretty powerful. I'm really debating between a 7 and an 8 here. I don't know. I'm going to go with an 8. I'm going to give it on a par with GoldenEye. There's some good stuff here. There's some good scene work. The opening is terrific. I love Sophie in the role of Electra King. I think this has got enough to and there's enough action to. There's more action in this than like almost. It's almost like 2 movies, with the amount of action they have in here. So I'm going to go with an 8. I think this is a solid entry in the Brosnan era.
It's funny because I'm very much of a similar mindset that I was sort of between a 7 and an 8 myself. And at the end of the day, I couldn't quite give it an 8 because, and I find it odd because basically I'm going to give it a 7, and I've given GoldenEye, Tomorrow Never Dies, and The World Is Not Enough all a 7, but I do feel like there's a lot of vacillating in between. But again, I can't quite get it to the 8 where, my 8s are pretty solid heavy hitters. So I'm going to stick with a 7. Again, I think it's a fine film. There's some parts that are really great, and then there's other moments where there's great parts. There are parts that are almost great, and they just sort of miss the mark. And then there's some genuinely clunky moments where I think we needed to polish a little bit better. But I think it's very fun. I think Brosnan is nailing the Bond character at this point. The action, even though it feels a little awkward and wedged in, is all pretty solid. The score is great. I enjoy the hell out of the score. And again, I think it's probably the most fun of the Brosnans. So with that, I'll stick with my 7.
My least favorite thing, I thought about this, and when it comes to least favorite, I think it's not Renard himself. I think that they laid the groundwork for an interesting character, and Robert Carlyle is such a great actor. I think somewhere along the line, though, they kind of lost the thread of him a little bit, and I think that they build up this thing where you think it's going to be this big climactic ending with a big fight with him, and he's going to be almost impossible to beat. But unfortunately, it just kind of fizzles out at the end with him. So that's a little disappointing. I wish that they explored him more, and we could have had a little bit of a better fight at the end. The submarine stuff at the ending is not bad. It's just not. I don't know. It just doesn't deliver on the promise of the setup.
I kind of, I don't want to pick on anybody, but Denise Richards, yeah. It doesn't derail the film or anything. I think the film is still great. But I mean, it's such an obvious miscast that I almost feel like, everyone knows she's miscast. They were going to do it anyway because, again, like you said, she's popular, very pretty, and they have to attract the teenage boy audience. So, I get why they did it, but I mean, there's nothing about that character that tells me that she was correctly cast. So I'll just leave it at that. She's not cast correctly.
I think my favorite part of The World Is Not Enough is Cigar Girl. She's just terrific in the film. I love that whole Swiss bank and the opening in the beginning. It's my favorite part of the movie. I just really like it. And it was after Tomorrow Never Dies. it was a sigh of relief to go to the movies and for the first time and see that scene and go, oh my God, it's competent. A competent action scene. I am beyond thrilled. Yeah, and it's kind of a shame that Maria couldn't be in the film a little more. I mean, it makes for a great sequence onto itself. And she was also considered for the role of Electra. But, Michael Apted, I think, said that her English wasn't quite up to par for him. So it's kind of a shame. But it all turned out great, though. So, that's my favorite scene.
This is probably going to be an obvious one, but for my favorite part, I'm going to go with the boat chase. Because I really do think that chase, even though it's got some awkward moments, I think it's really well done, and it's a really explosive way to start this film. I mean, I love the whole pre-titles, but since Scott grabbed the bank office scene, I'll just stick with the boat chase because I think the score is so good. And it all really does sort of come together. The funny parts are funny. The action parts are funny. The part where he's driving through the street, I kind of go, yeah, all right, you're getting a little carried away. But still, I think the whole thing is really great and just worked, as sort of a self-contained scene on its own. Ace just really works good. Love it. Scott, another good one. The World Is Not Enough. Thank you, my friend.
Well, thank you very much. I've had a great time talking about The World Is Not Enough, but perhaps a bit of an underrated James Bond film. And
Scott, David Zaritsky. Hey, I was just looking over yours and Joe's numbers on these reviews, and I've got to tell you, you're getting pretty popular. But I think you fail to take into account my hidden assets.
James Bond.